Hello everyone, Muckluck Douglas Bartholomew Reginald Esquire IV here, and I'm going to explain to you as fast as possible the charm and appeal of Guild Wars 2 versus other MMOs and make comparisons whenever possible. I frequently get visitors to the stream that ask questions like, I'm looking for a new MMO to play, I'm a bit bored with... insert other MMO name here. Do you think I would like Guild Wars 2? Here are the things I think Guild Wars 2 does best. Combat. The combat is one of the most fluid combat systems I've seen in 20 years of playing MMOs. In Guild Wars 2, your first 5 buttons are associated with your class and the weapon in your hand. The 6th key is your choice of a self-healing mechanic, 7, 8, and 9 are utility choices, and the 10th key is an ultimate. Because 1 through 5 are associated with your weapon, when you swap weapons, the 1 through 5 changes. Weapon swapping has a short cooldown in combat, but no cooldown outside of combat. Another thing I found appealing about the system is that most skills do not require a target. When I played WoW, I could not use many abilities without having someone to swing at, but here, if my target was a thief, for example, and they went invisible, I could still keep swinging wildly at where I thought they were, and I do have a chance of clipping them. Dodge rolling. Every class has an endurance bar. By default, it holds 2 charges of a dodge roll. This is similar to dodges in Dark Souls, in that for the moment you're dodging, you are evading all incoming attacks. This allows you to completely avoid very powerful hits in PvE or PvP once you know what to watch out for. I love this system. It is easy to pick up, but hard to master, baiting out an enemy's dodges, then going in for the finish. Downstate. When your hit points hit 0, you go into down state, as long as you didn't hit 0 from fall damage, then you go straight to dead. Down state is similar to Borderlands' Fight for Your Life mode. While in down state, you still have access to a few skills based on your class, but you are bleeding out. If you assist with getting a kill, bandage yourself, or an ally revives you, you pop back up. If your hit points hit 0 in down state, think of it like a second hit point bar, or if someone executes you, which is a few seconds of channeling while they stand over you, you're dead. Mounts. The mounts in this game are unique, useful, and none of them trivializes the others. To use World of Warcraft as an example, getting an epic ground mount allows you double speed, but none of the controls change at all. And once you get an epic flying mount, you never use your ground mount again unless you're forced to. Some exceptions apply, such as the vendor mounts. In Guild Wars 2, there are 8 mounts that each have a unique purpose. Here's the rapid-fire information. Raptor. Capable of long horizontal jumps, can leap over canyons, you can use his tail spin while dismounting to damage foes in an area and pull them together. Springer. Capable of large vertical leaps, can carry you up cliffs and out of ravines, can use cannonball while dismounting to damage and knock down nearby enemies. Skimmer. A hovering mount, used for traveling over water, sulfur, quicksand, acid, lava, etc. Can use barrel roll while dismounting to damage enemies and heal allies you pass through. The Jackal. The Jackal is a sand elemental in the shape of a dog. He can teleport short distances, allowing you to traverse past certain obstacles, and can pounce to damage, blind, and cripple enemies, and put up shields, think of these like bonus hit points, on allies. Roller Beetle. Think of it like a pod racer. In a big open area, it just keeps getting faster. It's difficult to turn until you get practice at drifting. Note, I suck at drifting. Can use his attack to break through certain walls in the game. Griffin. A gliding, not flying, mount. Good for leaping off of high places and traveling extremely far distances. Can swoop to dive bomb onto enemies or pull up after a swoop to sacrifice elevation for speed. Warclaw. The primary mount in World vs. World. At first it is a standard mount with a pounce ability. Later it can fire harpoons to dismount enemy mounted players, can attach chains to enemy gates to rip them off of their hinges, and its pounce can one-hit kill downed players if given the chance. Lastly, the Skyscale. The only true fully 3D maneuverable mount. However, it does have a stamina bar, and it cannot fly forever without reprieve. If it gets tired, you can land or cling to a wall to allow it a second to refill its stamina before continuing. Can blast an area with fire during the dismount to set enemies aflame. Any class can be tanky or glass cannon, or anywhere in between. When Guild Wars 2 released, it did not have the holy trinity of tank, DPS, and healer. There are some builds closer to that now, but a warrior is not necessarily tanky, and a mage is not necessarily fragile. You can make gear with nearly any stat combinations you want. If you want full offensive stats, as any class, you would be a bit of a glass cannon. An example would be building power, crit chance, and critical damage. but that same person could also build toughness, vitality, and power for heaps of armor, lots of hit points, and lots of base damage, but they lost the crit chance that the first example had. It is so refreshing to see an enemy, and even if you can immediately tell their class, you don't immediately know what you're dealing with. They could be playing a meta build that you see most often for that class, or they could be doing something completely unique that you aren't prepared for. World versus World. World vs. World is an insanely fun game mode that pits you in PvP versus other servers. You can siege down walls, keeps, steal supplies, hire mercenaries, and you get rewards for every few minutes as long as you are actively playing. If you're a WoW player, think of this as Alterac Valley, but it's 10 times the size. And when I say pits you against other servers, I'm talking things like 50 versus 50 versus 50 combat. Conquest. Conquest is the battleground, or rated PvP, of Guild Wars 2. There are many Conquest maps, but they are all played 5 versus 5, with 3 objectives to capture and a 4th that is unique to each map. The first team to 500 points wins. One of the huge appeals of this game mode is you can access it at level 2. You can reach that in a few minutes of playing. Once you enter Conquest, you're considered to be maximum level with all talents and gear unlocked. If you want a PvP on a Necromancer but you don't want a level 1, you don't have to. You can get end-game loot in multiple different ways. Raids. In most MMOs I played, this was the only way to get endgame loot. In Guild Wars 2, it is simply an option. Fractals. Fractals are like fast-paced 5-man dungeons with different buffs and debuffs in play every day. There are 100 tiers of difficulty, and depending on the modifiers, they can be very easy or very challenging. Conquest. That was the 5 versus 5 PvP. It gives currency when you play it, and you can spend this currency to buy the ascended gear you want. World versus World. In World vs. World, you get rewards every few minutes you're active. When you're lucky, you can get ascended items just by sheer chance, completely for free. And lastly, you can craft it. Gem Store. Guild Wars 2 has a gem store where you can buy some cosmetics or quality of life items. Like many games with similar stores, you can trade real-world currency for items. But you can also trade in-game gold for gems and then use that to buy things on the store. Got your eye on something but you don't want to spend real money on it? That's fine, you don't have to. Community. The community in Guild Wars 2 is, for the most part, a very positive group of people, and I think that it all stems from the way the game works. Here's a couple of examples. In most MMOs, you come across another player who is dead. It would not benefit you in any way to dismount, spend time rezzing them, and then move on. In Guild Wars 2, you actually gain experience for rezzing people, sometimes worth killing half a dozen mobs worth of experience. This results in people constantly helping each other up if they see somebody go down. Shared loot. In vanilla World of Warcraft, if I saw another player fighting a rare spawn, the most profitable thing I could possibly do would be to try to sabotage the other player, get them to die somehow, then tag the mob myself so I got the loot. Guild Wars 2 has a shared loot system where anyone who hits a mob gets a copy of that loot. This results in people fighting a tough mob and others frequently joining in if they're passing by, and it helps both parties. Exploration. Guild Wars 2 very much encourages exploration. When you finish a map completely, you get a large chest of rewards. When you finish the world map, you get components used for building legendary weapons. Legendary equipment is not required in the game. It has the same stats as Ascended gear, which is best in slot, but it is very flashy, changes your spell effects, and it can be changed to different stats at any time. So if you had a full set of legendary gear, you could change it to be a healing set of gear, damage gear, tank gear, anything in between, etc., without having to carry multiple sets of armor. Each item takes quite a bit of time to make. It can be weeks or more if you're doing it slowly and spending as little gold as possible, so there is always content to work on. All equipment can be traded between your characters. The world is constantly in motion. There are world bosses that spawn every few minutes, outdoor events constantly going on, different event chains based on success or failure of the event before it. There's an event timer webpage that shows you what world boss is up at any given time for ease of use if you want to simply join a group capable of doing world bosses non-stop. The entire core game, hundreds of hours of gameplay, is completely free, and you can download it using the link in the video description. It contains 8 of the 9 classes, as well as 5 of the 7 specializations, those are like talent trees, for each of them. The remaining class and specializations are included in the expansions, Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire. As of this video's release, Heart of Thorns became free with purchase of Path of Fire. I'll have a link for that page as well if you're interested, both of which are sponsored by ArenaNet. My recommendation is if I have sparked your interest, download the free core game and try it out. If you have any questions, I am on Twitch every night after 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'd love to answer them, or you can drop them in the comments down below. I could go on for hours on the things I love about this game, but these are the points I believed held the most appeal for me, so these are what I focused on. If you found this content useful, please consider hitting the subscribe button or following us on Twitch. I hope you enjoy your time in Tyria, and happy adventuring!